was young, I used to watch these young stars on Disney and envied them so bad. The fame they had, and watching them in magazines, I wanted to be like them. But since we have unearthed the shocking truths recently of what was going on in their lives and understanding the whole Disney star to disturbed and destroyed individual pipeline, I'm glad my parents never had the opportunity to make me a child star. Today, unfortunately, we will talk about Dan Schneider, who was an American actor, screenwriter, and television producer in the 2000s. Dan rose to fame as the creator of Nickelodeon's hit series like Drake and Josh, Zoe 101, iCarly, Victorious, Sam and Cat, and Henry Danger. But in 2018, he faced major downfall after being accused of behaving inappropriately with children and was also accused of being very angry, rude, and in general had a pathetic attitude with his team on set.
Coworker who sat right by Dan Schneider on production said that he had absolutely no boundaries with minors. This all came to a head when many people started looking at Dan Schneider's past. The running theme in all of his shows were feet. And looking at his Twitter, it was the same thing. Many child stars would keep quiet about this, but eventually all had to come out in the wash. Enter iCarly star Jeanette McCurdy. Allegedly in her book, she would call Dan the creator. She would say the creator would force her to drink, take bikini photos, and do inappropriate things. She would then allege that the creator would, quote, make all of his favorites do the same thing. In her book, she said Nickelodeon offered $300,000 to stay quiet.
Now, people have been digging his past for a long time, and he is also responsible for scripting many inappropriate innuendos in his shows. Mind you, these shows were for children, and also there were child actors being cast in these shows. These kind of scenes never had any relationship with the scripts, and also he is known to have a thing for feet, which in itself is a very big iceberg to explain, and I won't be getting into that. But if you search Dan Schneider feet, you'll get what you want. Recently, Netflix has released a 4-part documentary series detailing the toxic behind-the-scenes world of children's television from the late 1990s to the early 2010s, specifically Dan Schneider's tenure as a producer at Nickelodeon. And this has highlighted many of his creep colleagues too, from which many are convicted. Now, Dan has done an interview and I'm yet to watch the documentary. I have to make a separate video on it, but today we are going to watch his interview with a former Disney actor. Now, I'm not gonna react to all of it because this interview is quite long and the video is gonna get even longer. But you guys can watch it on Hollywood Reporter on TikTok. I have also watched it there and they have posted it in 2 parts.
Hey, it's Boogie. I played T-Bo on Nickelodeon's iCarly. I got a chance to watch the Quiet on Set program and I reached out to Dan to see if it was something that he'd be willing to discuss. I'm pleased to say that he said yes. Dan, how are you?
I'm okay. I really appreciate you reaching out and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about what we saw over the last 2 nights.
I'm really glad you're here because I believe this is important.
For sure.
We've got a lot of things to unpack. But before I dive into my list of topics that I'd like to discuss, is there anything you'd like to start off with?
Absolutely. Watching over the past 2 nights was very difficult. Me facing my past behaviors, some of which are embarrassing and that I regret, and I definitely owe some people a pretty strong apology.
I think you owe more than an apology. I think there should be a thorough investigation, in my opinion, and if convicted, then there should be a sentence because the evidence against you, Dan, is overwhelming.
Let's talk about the massages.
Okay.
Watching the content yesterday, it was disturbing.
It was wrong. It was wrong that I ever put anybody in that position. It was the wrong thing to do. I'd never do it today. I'm embarrassed that I did it then. I apologize to anybody that I ever put in that situation. And even additionally, I apologize to the people who were walking around Video Village or wherever they happened, because there were lots of people there who witnessed it who also may have felt uncomfortable. So I owe them an apology.
He was an adult, a very mature adult at that time, and I know that he knew what he was doing. And if he were any younger, he would have played it off as I was young and I had no idea what I was doing. I was naive.
Dan, talk to me about the writer's room. From what I saw, not cool.
No, and I don't mean to cut you off, but if I can cut right to the chase, let me just say, no writer should ever feel uncomfortable in any writer's room, ever, period, the end, no excuses. Most TV writers, comedy writers have been in writers' rooms, and they are aware that a lot of times there are inappropriate jokes made and inappropriate topics come up. But the fact that I participated in that, especially when I was leading the room, it embarrasses me. I shouldn't have done it. And I can tell you why it hurts really bad for me. I remember very clearly my early experiences, my first experiences in the entertainment business. I was green, I was scared, I was excited.
Well, judging from your attitude that you had on set and what people had to say about your attitude, it doesn't look like you were scared. It looked like that you were there to scare them.
It meant the world to me that I was getting those opportunities. And I went in and I got lucky because they were great. My first couple of experiences were fantastic. And the fact that I didn't pay that forward to every employee that walked through my door, it hurts my heart because I should have. And I wish I could go back and fix that. In the writer's room, there's no doubt that sometimes those jokes went beyond the pale and I said things that went too far or made practical jokes that went too far. And that was wrong. And that was because, I was an inexperienced producer. I was immature. Wouldn't happen today. But I'm just really sorry it happened.
Yeah. Now, we know you've had a lot of success over 2 decades. Thousands of people have worked with you, for you.
Okay.
Let's speak directly to the people who did not have a good experience with you.
Okay, I would like to speak to those people because I hate that anybody worked for me and didn't have a good time. You know me, you've been on my sets. Look, I've had some employees that have worked for me for 10 years, some more than 20 years, who would work with me again. But not everybody. There's still a significant number that didn't have a great time working for me. So my batting average isn't nearly high enough in that area. And the way they wouldn't get the best of me is that I would let the pressure of doing 40 or even more episodes per year, I would let that pressure get to me, which a good boss should never, ever do.
Was there specific things that you were doing?
Sure. I would snap at people sometimes. I would be snarky when I could have given them a nicer answer.
And also you body shamed people while looking like this.
I would not give people the time that they needed. I would be in too big a hurry to get on to the next thing I had to do. And watching that show, there were so many times I wanted to pick up a phone and call some of those people and say, I'm so sorry and let's talk about it. And
yeah, it's very strange how all of this regret and all of these wanting to do interviews is coming out when the documentary has come out. Before that, there was nothing. And literally nothing, radio silence from him. But now he wants to do interviews and now he wants to call everybody and apologize. Yeah, that's a little bit too fake for me.
I wish you'd had a better time and I wish I could have shown you a better experience.
Yeah. Now, you've written hundreds of episodes. Thousands of jokes have been told.
Yeah.
But currently where we are, some people think that some of those jokes are inappropriate for children. What do you think of that?
All these jokes that you're speaking of, that the show covered over the past 2 nights, every one of those jokes was written for a kid audience because kids thought they were funny and only funny.
Kids don't like those jokes necessarily, okay? They don't even fully understand those. You're the ones who were writing these. You and your team, you were the one who was approving all of this. And when you applied all of those people laughing in the background after every lame joke, obviously the kids sitting in front of the TV would be bound to laugh because they think, oh, maybe it's a joke, I missed it. But trust me, even as a kid, I used to watch these shows and no, none of this was funny to me. I wouldn't even understand what's being implied there. What's so funny?
Now we have some adults looking back at them 20 years later through their lens, and they're looking at them and they're saying, oh, I don't think that's appropriate for a kid show.
You should have seen that with your adult lens way before than they did. You were an adult writing all of this, approving all of this, making that show. You were in charge of everything. So why did you wait those children to grow up and then point out that, well, something was wrong with all of these things.
And I have no problem with that. If that's how anyone feels, let's cut those jokes out of the show. Just like I would have done 20 years ago or 25 years ago. I cut it. I want my shows to be popular. I want everyone to like. The more people who like the shows, the happier I am.
Yeah.
So if there's anything in a show that needs to be cut because it's upsetting somebody, let's cut.
The problem is not about cutting the jokes out of it. It's not just the audience that you were exploiting. It was the children on set too. What about them? What about the practical jokes that you made them do with inappropriate innuendos implied?
Cut it.
So I think it's big for you to say with your work, if it's viewed as that today, you don't have a problem.
Cut it. Cut it.
I mean, that's a solution.
The last thing I want to ever do
Yeah.
is put any content in a show that's going to upset my audience and make them want to turn off the TV. Why would I ever want to do that?
That makes sense. I want to give you an opportunity to kind of elaborate on something.
Okay.
The thought process from the series is you had the power to just write a joke and no matter what, it's going on TV. You just had that type of power. Is that true?
The notion that I had the power to just produce whatever I wanted and have it air is completely false.
Okay.
There were many, many levels of scrutiny. Okay? We had executives in LA. We had executives in New York.
So two coasts.
Two coasts
Okay.
of
Both
approval.
coasts.
Yes. And by the way, approval at every stage, really.
Okay.
And I'm talking about wardrobe. I'm talking about makeup, sound, sets, dialogue, jokes, everything.
Now, when you say approval, these obviously that's a hierarchy, not your colleagues or
right.
people in the room. Okay.
No, not my colleagues. No, these are my bosses. Bosses, and then their bosses, and then their bosses. And they're approving all of this stuff.
Okay.
Okay?
Executives sitting on east, west, north, south, and everybody was there. But still, these things happened. Why? Because there are people reporting that you wouldn't listen to anybody. You were so abusive and so aggressive. Why would anybody be daring to go against you?
And we're also shooting it in front of all sorts of adults and caregivers and the set teacher and the families. Everybody's watching it. And if anybody had said anything, hey, we don't like that, that's not appropriate, then it would have been cut out.
Now, I'm gonna push back a little bit
Sure.
because the series painted you in this way that you were just the guy that was doing what he wanted, and people.
First of all, this interview seems very, very scripted. I don't think so. That's a mystery. And second of all, this interviewer is the way he's speaking. The documentary painted you like this. The documentary was implying this. This is so invalidating to the victims, alleged victims. This is so invalidating.
People were afraid to confront you about things. So say, just humor me, say that was the case. What would have been the ultimate way to...
Okay, if nobody on the set, if all of the dozens and dozens of adults that were on the set, if they didn't say anything, if my bosses said, if they insisted, you got to make a change here, you got to cut that, I had to do it. I had no choice.
Got it. Now this next one, it kind of hit close to home. Being a new father, I wouldn't be opposed to my child being in the entertainment industry. It doesn't matter what age, yeah? Seeing some of those on-air dares, seeing it now from where you are now in your life, what do you think of that?
I think that some of the on-air dares went too far. I think they pushed the envelope too far. Not all of them, not most of them, but some did. Nickelodeon wanted to do their version of Fear Factor. At the time we were shooting All That, so I was tasked with doing these on-air dares with the All That cast. So we get with the writers and we come up with all these ideas, and it's hard to do because we don't have the budget of Fear Factor, and we can't put the kids in dangerous situations like the adults are put in. So it was hard to come up with stuff. But we would come up with all these ideas of dares they could do. We would give them to the network, and they would say, tell us the ones that were okay.
Right.
Those are the ones we shot. Those are the ones that aired. At the time, I had no indication that any kid ever had a problem with them. But when I was watching the show over the past 2 nights, I now know that there were kids who did have problems with the on-air dares. And it breaks my heart. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry to any kid who ever had to do a dare or anything that they didn't want to do or weren't comfortable doing. We went out of our way to make sure they were safe and that everything was done properly. But if a kid was scared and didn't want to do it, kids shouldn't have had to do it.
Yeah.
Period, the end.
Right.
And if I had known at the time, I would have changed it on the spot.
Now, we also saw the series highlight 2 former writers of yours, 2 women, who spoke about a wage discrepancy. Now, I know that you don't divvy out salaries. Talk to me about that part.
Well, you're correct. I have nothing to do with paying writers. I never have. I've never made a writer's deal. And of all the writers I've been in a writer's room with, I never even knew how much most of them were getting paid.
Yeah, but we saw these two women who were writers for you sharing one salary. How does that happen?
It's very simple. There's a common practice in television when hiring.
This might be a common practice, but it doesn't mean that it is legal. It is something right to do. So it's definitely not legal to make two people who are working separately share a salary. I have never heard about it. I have never heard about it. He is being very clueless about everything. He implies that he was very clueless and naive about everything, and everything just happened and he had no idea. He didn't know any better. However, he was quite grown up even back then. To imply these things, like, I don't know. He's acting like he was one of the child stars and he, committed some silly mistakes and that's it. It's so annoying. And for him to say that it's not a big deal if I was paying these two writers to just share one salary, I was forcing them to share one salary just because they were female writers. One of them wasn't able to work anywhere after that. Okay, she wasn't able to work in the industry after that. Why is that? Because you had the influence to do so. You had the influence to make her go away, shun her from the industry, and let her know that who she has messed with. So that's an abuse of power. That's what an evil person, what a bad person does. And if you were this person that you're portraying to be right now, she wouldn't have gone through all of that. Nobody would have gone through all of that. So that's about it, everybody. I hope you liked this video. Please like this video and share it. Subscribe if you have not. Check out my Pinterest in the description box below. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.